I do have to say that if anybody isn't sure if they should do it, they should do it, because you won't know until you get on stage. Just do it, take chances, because
that's a fact of life. I love that,
just
Rene.
do it. Just like pull the plug or get on the plane, or I don't know, Russian's not is my first language. So whatever is the
Well, hello everybody. I am Noni.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen.
And this is Best Friends with Benefits. And we're so excited about today's episode. Kristen, tell them what it's going to be.
Oh my gosh, we have the amazing Rene Lovit on the show today. She's an amazing comedian. She just moved back to New York City from LA. She is single, for any of the single guys listening. So we're going to be covering a lot about how she got into comedy, what she's doing now during the pandemic, and how she's dealing with dating and all of that too. So let's welcome Rene on the show.
Hey girl, hey.
I love the leopard. So hot.
Love it.
Yeah, just keeping in theme, you know, New York has a vibe, everybody's cool. I'm like, get it together. It can't be in sweatpants out here. I'm not the theme of New York City.
Exactly.
Chin chin.
Ching ching. So Rene, why don't you give us a little Cliff Notes version of who Rene is for anybody that doesn't know?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's going to be a quick one because we only have a whole pandemic. So, I mean, let's just take no time at all.
Just a whole endless pandemic.
No vaccine. We're going to do this from home for 600 years. I was born in the good old USSR, which is the former Soviet Union, a country that no longer exists, but now is known as Ukraine. And I immigrated as a little kid, around 5-6 years old, to San Francisco. They packed me in a suitcase, lost everything but me. And that was all very exciting for everyone. And yeah, I grew up in San Francisco in the Bay Area and moved around a lot because immigrants and, you know, nobody spoke English. And that's pretty much it. Learned to speak English in 3rd grade, and then they shipped me right back to the potato farm for the summer because nobody could afford the YMCA. And I spent my summers in a village in Ukraine, and then the rest of the school year as like a San Francisco up and coming, you know, immigrant learning to speak English, and then went to college up there, and then moved around, you know, doing this or whatever we're doing. Or whatever we're doing,
whatever this is, we're doing here.
Yeah. So that's kind of the quick gist of a history lesson.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you start your career? Like, what made you choose comedy, and why did you go into what you're in right now?
I was thinking about this in this time because I haven't really done, you know, anything really in this window besides complain. And now I'm like, I have to start figuring out how I want to address some of this, you know, whatever stuff, but also personally what it really means. But I grew up in a place that's not that far from Chernobyl. Chernobyl was like a big ordeal in my lifetime. I was there. I was a baby, but like my family, everybody was affected by that. Right. Then this, you know, series came out on HBO, and I was making a lot of jokes about Chernobyl, like all the lies, all the bullshit, like, we blew up a power plant, whoopsie daisy, you know? And now it's like, okay, this is why comedy happened, because it was so traumatic. And comedy is so complicated. It's personal, and the best comedy comes from trauma, which is why comedians, you know, I always say don't date a comedian, probably including me.
Come on, Rene, we're trying to set you up after this.
That's a gem right there.
Yeah, I mean, probably think of that. Think twice. Let me tell you, because we'll talk about it. But yeah, I mean, I got into it. I always had a lot to say. When I was a kid, I was the kid with the report card that says, you know, you talk too much. I used to try and write that out. When I learned English, I was like, I can speak. I will. Everyone what to do immediately. And my parents didn't understand. So I would like white things out and then write like best student.
Best student ever.
Yeah, A++. But
Straight A's.
Straight A's down the board with white out. But yeah, and then, you know, I realized I wanted to be in theater, and I was a theater started to be a theater major in college. And then I studied performance in London. And then I came to New York to do, you know, Shakespeare and like Broadway and be like really, you know, that type of person. And and then that didn't happen for me. I ended up going to LA. I, you know, worked on something small, and then the trajectory in LA became, you know, very like platinum blonde, you know, I don't know, beach body world, and that wasn't working for me either. And at some point in time, a really good friend put me on gave me a mic and put me on a stage in LA, and at the Comedy Store, actually, which has a documentary coming out in like, yeah, it's coming out in like 2 days.
That's an iconic venue.
Yeah, they have a great story. And anyway, and then I realized, wow, I can just really talk shit for like a long time. And nobody will tell me to stop. I mean, they will. You can clean it up.
That's
but
so
like,
great.
It became a soapbox, and then it actually became fun. And then I realized, you know, there's so many issues you can cover with laughter, and the best comedy makes you think about everything. It makes you
100%.
question hypocrisy. It makes you question your point of view. It makes you wonder, you know, who you really are and like what you really want to believe and how you really want to talk to people. And then you're also laughing. So
yeah. I love what you said, because I've worked for Jimmy Fallon before. I sang at his children's birthday parties. And I actually said to him, I was like, thank you. Like, thank you for who you are, because the world needs comedians. Like, the world needs to laugh during, and this was a couple of years ago, but I mean, even more now, it's like, laughter heals. Laughter is so good for your soul. And during this time where there's so many traumatic events happening, we need laughter more than anything. So I really love that you pointed to that. It's so therapeutic, and it's so important.
It's true. People need to be like, I mean, whatever, 2 nights ago, the debates was like, you know, it was like two old Russian grandmas joking about their borscht recipe. It was like them arguing about who has the best pickles. Mine is best. No, mine is best. I can't beat. No, I can't pickles. No, it's the best. No, it's my best. And I'm just like, you know what, guys? Someone tell me how to make this fucking soup. I don't care about who has the best beef. Like, just give me the ingredients. I'm not going to grow cabbage in my overpriced New York apartment. Like, just explain to me the basics. And they were like two old cankerous grandmas. Like, I am not we're like, I'm trying to make a borscht here. Like, someone
lay it out.
I just was like, I'm turning this off.
So crazy.
I cannot
either. It actually reminded me of two frat boys too, just like going at it. Like,
yeah. And you're like, oh my god, somebody answer a question.
This is the country we're living in. Okay.
Yeah. But you have to laugh. You have to laugh, because really, I mean, otherwise you're going to cry. And we're all crying anyway, I guarantee you. Like, we're all in tears. We're all trying to, like, just keep it together. And it's like, if you aren't, some of it is really not funny. And, you know, at this point, it's just like, it's past the humor mark. And I remember sometimes I would talk about, you know, the fall of communism or my immigration, or like my dad not, you know, speaking English, and thinking, at what point is this like an issue that isn't funny anymore? Like, this is difficult for a lot of people. But I just hope we don't lose humor really anywhere, because
it's so important.
It's so important.
Yeah.
We've got to keep our sanity that way and keep laughing that way.
Yeah. And you got to say the things that are important and make them also a statement, you know, along the way. Yeah.
Well, I love that you said that you used it as a soapbox, and you really, you know, use it as a way to speak your mind, but also,
Mhm.
you know, infuse the comedy in it too. It's
Yeah.
really
My
important.
favorite comedians are the ones that have that social commentary or just talk about life and things that we can all relate to. I feel like that's what unites audiences as well. Like the people in the audience, that we're all laughing at the same thing. We're all relating to the same backstory and the same childhood traumas and all of that. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the art of stand-up comedy. Like that's literally something that there's a lot of people that are listening right now that swear that they're hilarious, but put them on a stage with like 5 minutes to fill to hold an audience. Like where was the point where you knew that you weren't just like, you know, conversationally funny, but you can actually deliver a full set for stand-up?
Yeah, I mean, I think Seinfeld says this, you know, comedy is the most honest job you're ever going to have because it just happens in the moment so quickly. And you have such a short window of time to figure it out. Like you don't know that you don't have an hour to chit chat. You have to get in there and get out. So, I mean, I think it's, I don't know, you just get on stage and then if it works, I mean, everything changes, jokes change, like
Right.
points of view change, everything just becomes like a work in progress always. You have nights that you bomb, you have nights that are like the best ever, and you do the same joke, and you're like, wait,
Mhm.
I thought that was funny, but nobody laughed
No.
this time. You're just
Mhm.
like, what happened? But I think I don't know. I do have to say that if anybody isn't sure if they should do it, they should do it because you won't know
Ooh, I
until
like
you get on
that.
stage. Just do it, take chances
That's
because
a fact of life. I
yeah,
love that,
just do
Renee.
it. Just like pull the plug or get on the plane or I don't know. Russian's not is my first language, so whatever is the phrase, the
That was a
American
good
phrase is.
analogy.
I'm like, get on a
Take the
horse,
leap.
ride,
Take the leap.
yeah, ride a wing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Get on the
But-
plane.
Plunge. I mean, there's a lot of phrases you could say.
Yeah, but
Oh
I
my
think
God.
just like do it, try it, and you'll know. Like that's the thing is you don't know yourself, but you'll know because the audience will tell you. Like I didn't know that I could do that, but the audience will respond, and you'll get enough
Right.
responses. You'll also know how it makes you feel. Like if you think you're funny, but you haven't been funny to a group of people waiting for you to be funny, they're just like sitting there like make me laugh, you know, and you're like
the pressure.
that kind of if that feeling like it's either going to feed you or it's going to be like I'm never ever going to do that
Right.
again.
Right.
So if you don't if you don't try it you won't really know, but the truth is the audience will be honest. Like you'll get more honesty than you think you will, and most likely you'll be able to gauge like how much laughter you can. And also location matters. In LA I have to explain every joke.
Yeah.
That's my 5 minutes. It's like
You
this
have
is the
to-
joke, and this is the explanation, and then I got off stage. In New York it's like, and then I'm like, did everybody get it?
Yeah, exactly. It's
You
like
know,
you have
it's
to
different.
you speak to the audience that you're with and kind of read the room
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's all
depends. Yeah, I mean it's so different now, but like I mean Dave Chappelle there's a lot of this middle America stuff where you're like, okay, let's talk about alcoholism, and that has to be funny, even though is it? So, but like anything, you just have to kind of I don't know read the room and see what you can do and cross your fingers and hope somebody went home laughing, but you probably are going to push some buttons and some people are not going to like what you say. And that's a whole other problem we're living with now where it's like everything is controversial. Everything's a problem. Everything is taken out of context or even in context. You're not sure. But I think we have to remember that like you can really gauge the core of a person pretty quickly. You can really know someone. I mean, Chris and I, we're new besties, but like you can gauge so quickly whether this person is coming from a good place. Like you're going to snafu in a conversation or in a comedy or in whatever so many times, but you can know if that person is coming from a good place. And if they're not, that's also obvious. They're usually going to tell you that. You know what I mean? So
I love that.
That's true in life.
It's so true in life.
I'd love to know if you have ever had a heckler in the audience and how If you did, how did you deal with it?
Yeah, I've definitely had some hecklers a lot of times.
A lot.
I mean, a lot of times they say something stupid, towards women. It's usually the hecklers with women are usually the guys that will say women aren't funny. So those guys will usually go into a comedy club and be like, "You're too hot for, whatever." It's that kind of, or I don't know. It's usually something physical or something. I mean, with that, it just depends on like the audience and where you are, and you just respond. But I think I definitely had some interesting ones that had, Trump commentary early in the election 4 years ago, when I used to be like, my material on Putin, and I would like wear my Russian hat and be like, "Hey, everybody, we're taking this election, the Russians, and that's who's taking it. Are you paying attention? Like, we're telling you, the Russians are telling you." And people would be really, I mean, it was like everybody was split in 2016 compared to now. I can't even, I'm like dying to get back on stage because I can't even, I think one of the worst, like one of the biggest losses is that comedians are on Zoom, but you're not reaching as many audiences. And we want to address some of this stuff. And like, it's so important because it's just, it's so polarizing, but like we want to hear people responding to us because we can't really tell unless they are,
Yeah,
so
that was my next question. Have you done any performances on Zoom, or have you done anything during the pandemic?
yeah. Well, here's what I learned real quick. I am not a Zoom comedian. Like
I think you are. You're doing great.
But when there's
I would come to your show
of like faces and they're just like staring at you in technology, it's like whatever the Truman Show. It's like whatever sci-fi movie. I'm not a sci-fi person. I just was like, I don't know what realm where am I? Like, should I be making jokes about Mars? Like, I just could not fathom like what I was supposed to do. And like people would do weird things like have like fake mics or like, "I'm gonna do this with a remote control." And I just was like, I'm sorry. Is this, I don't know. I just couldn't quite. I mean, in the beginning it was a little bit fun. It was kind of like, oh, this new thing that you're gonna try. Like we all were with our friends on Zoom. And then by like, between March like 15th and March 25th, we were like, we're over. What can we do? Like it was a month and we were out. But yeah, I did a few things. I wasn't crazy about it because you can't hear anybody laugh. And then the laugh is like, you can, but if they open the mics, it's too loud. If they don't, you can't hear yourself. It's all that random.
So it's just
it's like technology is amazing, but for like three best friends. It's not great for
a comedy show. I got it. Yeah. So why did you so what made you move to LA? So you're from the USSR and then you grew up in New York. Did you grow up in New York and then moved to LA and then you moved back recently?
Yeah, I grew up in San Francisco, but I lived in New York. I came to New York like 10 years ago and I loved it. And I was also like so young and everything was so fun, but like, this will age me, but that's fine. But there was like no Uber, no Lyft, no apps, no nothing. Oh, yeah. And we were like running outside try catching a cab in the middle of a snowstorm in like high heels. And I remember thinking when I got the call for work in LA, I thought, oh yeah, like I'm gonna go to LA. I'm never gonna run in the snow again. Like what the hell? And then things change. Like New York's obviously pre-pandemic, but like New York's a different city now. Everything is actually easier, which people don't realize when you're like a New Yorker complaining. But in general, it is easier than it was a decade ago. But yeah, I lived in LA for a decade, which is a decade too long. But if you're curious, go check it out. But it was definitely time to go. I just am not, I don't know, but yeah. And then I was moving basically like in the middle of March, I was moving, and I was coming here to work on a 1-woman show. And then all this happened and everything shut down. And somewhere in the middle, LA just got real lonely. And it's a weird place. Like you get in and out of your car. There's no, like the interactions are very, you don't feel life like outside. People are like hiking by themselves in their cul-de-sac of Malibu. You'll never see a human, you know, which felt good in April, but does not feel good in September. You're like, are there people, like, where is the world?
It's post-apocalypse.
Yeah, it just felt too, like, I don't know. But and I decided, well, I don't know, at some point I have to make this move. And I just started packing. I had no idea what it was like. I had no idea where I was going to live. I really don't, it's not like anybody has a job yet. You know, whoever's listening, like, if you need any commentary, I'll do it. But like, nobody knows about anything. But it became very much kind of leap of faith. It was very much like, I'm just going to take a chance on this. I know I want to be there. I know I have single friends in town. I know people are like, there's like open seating, outside seating. There are humans in the world. I mean, we talked about this a little bit because I listened to your first, and I have a lot of friends who, you know, got married, had kids, now drag their kids to like Seattle or somewhere quote unquote safer. But your friendships do change when everybody decides, you know, they're grown up and they want to move on with their lives, which Kristen and I are en route. We'll get there. We're not.
No, we're looking. And if we don't find them, we'll marry each other and we'll just be fabulous.
Yeah. But all of that is like
girl. You can move into my place.
Yeah, I'm ready. I don't know. I have a plan. But it just changes so much. Your friendships change, that world changes. And then in a pandemic, when everybody is like with their husbands and with their kids,
really lonely.
It's so lonely. And it's like, oh, I want to be where people, like, where I have single friends, or where people are still like trying to even get on an app, or I don't know, just something that's outside of the realm of like, I've picked a person and this person and my kids and I are like, that's it. So it got to that stage for me where I was like, I'm just gonna go. And now I'm here and I'm like, I can't believe I don't know what I'm doing. Like literally, like, I don't even know the neighborhood I'm living in. I just am like, where is anything? But it's also made me feel alive, and for the first time in a long time. Like, I think we all shut down so quickly because it was like survival, and we just like nothing normal was happening anymore. But I think for me, I lost so much of like that adrenaline of like getting on stage, or
you're
like
so recreating me right now.
It's like that feeling, first dates, you know, or like anything scary, auditions, like whatever, all of that stuff that like makes you. I mean, you guys are saying it's like just getting in front of an audience, like all of that stuff that makes you feel scared. And in a good way, it just
reminds you you're alive.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like we were scared in not a good way. We were scared in like, what is happening? But I think taking that kind of chance for me was like, oh, I have to remember that I'm still here. Like we're still here. And I got on a plane and was like, I literally texted her. She was like, I'm here. I live here now. She was like, what? Yeah. It was a long time coming. Anyway, that was a long-winded answer, but yeah, pretty much all of it.
What I really love, and I hear it in everything you say, and you said it before, if you're curious, just do it. It's such a great way to live by. I wonder if, like, it seems like you were such a transplant growing up and going from place to place and just having to adapt. Do you think that kind of lent into that mentality of like, if you're curious, just do it?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm always interested in like dualities and people's relationship to their families compared to, say current times, or growing up in a different country, or growing up with like different points of view. But my parents are so what would be considered like conservative and traditional, and they have a lot of rules, and they're very, they're very Russian, and they have all of this like, control that they come with. And I always tell them like, it shouldn't surprise you that both your kids went into the arts and went completely in like a direct, like they wanted doctors and lawyers. I'm like, you guys left a country with no language, no help, like you knew nothing. You had no technology. You had no like, Google Translate. You had nothing. And you got on that plane. You were the first.
Took a risk.
Chance takers.
Yeah.
Like
Took
that's
a big risk.
And that, I think that's like, I don't know, but to me, I'm like, that's genetic. Like you guys did it first. And now you're mad that we're doing it, but we're going to do it because that's
you guys are taking it to the next level too.
Yeah. So I think they'll never really want to admit that, but I think they were the first to do it and we watched them do it and we watched that struggle pay off, So when a struggle pays off, you're always going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to try this. Like, why, and I think it just, I don't know. I just have always felt like it's always worth it to try because what they could have got. I mean, what's the worst? Everything changed after they left anyway. They could have just gone back to Russia. Yeah. So it's like, if you don't try and you're just going to sit there and wonder. Yeah.
I really hear like taking a risk and doing something that you're passionate about and something that you love, because like you said, it's like you could end up being old and like whatever, we're all going to get old anyway. So you might as well like try something that you love. And if you fail, you fail, but at least you can say, I tried. And sometimes when you keep failing and failing, that's where the learning comes in. Like when you were saying about the audience thing, it's just like, okay, you learn how to make your joke better when you're not getting a response, or, what works with this audience might not work with this audience, but it's all like trial and error. And like, that's how you're learning and growing as a comedian, as an artist, as a person. I think it can be said for really anything. It's like always growing and learning from the failure or from the risks that you're taking.
Yeah. I mean, there are all these studies. I mean, what have we been doing in the pandemic? I've been just like reading random psychological studies on like how to be a better person. But like, there are all these psychological studies about, people's happiness levels when they take chances. And they did all these experiments with people on subways where they said like, oh, just say hello to a stranger and see how it makes you feel. And the anxiety you feel about just doing that simple thing is so much like, it's so unfounded because usually the stranger will respond in kind. And then you've like started a conversation and the people getting off those trains who took the chance to just say hello just came out of those like places being so much happier on a morning commute, which is annoying regardless. And there's just so much to be said about like, that's just a simple act. But I so believe in like new connections and new friends and like building your relationships with the new relationships and like creating these like, it's building blocks of life versus like you just, you have a plateau or whatever, the foundation, but like you have to build on it. And I think that's, taking those chances and like taking those leaps, like really what's going to happen to you on the subway? Somebody's going to be like, I'm reading this book, I don't want to talk to you. And you're like, okay, cool. Like there's no, like the consequences are always so much bigger in our minds, I think. So yeah, it's always worth it. But anyway, apparently happiness factor, if you just say hello to a stranger.
I love that. I love to talk about dating. But Kristen, you have
that's a good segue into the next question. Saying hello to strangers.
I think it's so interesting. Like earlier you said never date a comedian, but you are hot to trot. So let's talk about it. Like what type of man does Rene
She only dates celebrities and she only dates people that are in the food business.
Really? Okay, so
give us that food.
Yeah, food. I love food. I love to, I just love, I love social life. So that's, I obviously celebrity.
And she loves eating and drinking. Obviously.
Yes, exactly. I say social, but do I like a drink? Yes.
Do you have a checklist of what you like in a guy, or is it just like based on the connection that you have, there's no type?
There's definitely no type. I always joke about like wanting to do a lineup of the guys I've dated, and they're all so different. Like none of them look remotely like they're good. Diversity is my lineup of dating. It's like from everywhere. I have probably been like people you wouldn't think, Samoans or like, like just like locations of like small islands in Tonga, like just like definitely places that would like maybe surprise someone. But yeah, there's definitely been like a Ginge in the mix, a Prince William type. There's been like, throw in a Ginge. There's been like, there'll be like, I don't know, I dated this like German stunt coordinator, which was like out of nowhere, but he's like half Asian. It's like just it'll be like every.
So you're taking leaps everywhere.
Yeah. I'll take a chance. Like just as long, I'll take a chance on you. Just don't be boring.
No, I love it.
That's great.
So I don't have like a list. I mean, now the list changed a little because now it's like, I think for a while it's fun to say like ignorance is bliss and like I'm just having fun. It's not that fun anymore. It's like if you're kind of like neither here nor there on some of these issues, if you don't understand what's going on in the world, that's a problem now. I maybe would have turned that into a joke before, but now it's like, it's not funny. Like now we can't like, just have a salad instead. Now it's like, excuse me.
Now it's like, excuse me, I need to go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it's the same thing. I literally matched with someone on Bumble during the pandemic. I started talking to him. In the first conversation, I found out he supports Trump, and that was the last time I talked to him. So it's like, I am very clear about what I'm looking for. And he was hot as hell.
That's the thing is like, that's what I'm saying about you kind of can gauge, like, there's just something to be said about like decency, kindness, like basic, like just understanding of like doing something for someone else, all of that stuff. And if politically and like whatever, however you're going to take this in, if you can't figure out the difference between those two things, I think, or like the polarizing effects we're in right now, I think in life, you can't have that kind of life partner because what stops that person from being mean to you or from bullying your kids together or from, like the issues we're seeing now. I'm like, but those are going to be the issues in your home, like obsessive control or like overreacting. Like everything is like, if that's what you're seeing and you're supporting, then that's who you are.
Yeah, and it's no longer just like, oh, I support the Republican Party or whatever. It's like the fact that we're in where we're in is just like, it makes such a difference. It's like, you can't be with that unless you're on the same page. It's never going to work.
And I mean, I joke about this all the time, but it's not really a joke anymore where it's like people complain about a two-party system or writing in a candidate. I'm like, but writing in a candidate is like, that's just having a system where people vote is great. I came from a system where we didn't have that. Russia still doesn't have that. Nobody gets a vote. Nobody knows anything about anything. One person controls the whole thing. It's like, we don't want that. We want to have debates. We want to have conversations. We want to have different points of view on an issue. That's why everybody should be voting. But the point is, everybody should be voting. Like, okay, you disagree, great. Like, let's bring back the system where that meant something and where those disagreements were valid and interesting, not just mean. Because now they're just mean, and that sucks. That reminds me of the USSR. People are just mean to each other. Why? Because you don't get an opinion. When you don't get an opinion, you just become like everything, you just lose yourself and you're mad at the world. So, don't let them take that away. Vote.
Vote.
Vote. That's a Russian. Who knows?
And that's basically it. I feel like the country has lost a little bit of decorum and consideration. And I think it's because of who the leader is right now and how they conduct themselves. It's just feeling, and you see all the videos of just people being so nasty to each other. It's just, the snake rots at the head, really. And I have stopped villainizing someone just because they're Republican or whatever it is. If you support Trump, that's a whole other thing, another situation. But
same.
To me now, Trump is not even like, there are so many Republicans that don't even support or want to be a part of what Trump is doing. So it's just, I feel like we've stopped listening to each other and stop having those really complicated and honest discourses. If it's just like, oh, you believe that, I don't even want to hear your opinion because you're wrong and you're evil or bad. But the being nice to each other, it just starts there. Just listen to each other. Just, be cordial. And we can actually get somewhere where we all are
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah, there's a lot of this like you're wrong dialogue. And I listened to your guys' last, and there's so much to be said about like no one is wrong or right. Like if you can acknowledge everybody else, like everybody's presence and everybody's a human and everybody's responding in different ways. This whole thing where everybody knows everything is really irritating because the point is none of us know a thing. We don't know. We have only so much information and you are never going to have it all. And you're only going to know so much about one topic that comes from your family or that you grew up around or an issue that means something to you. Like you can speak to that, but you don't know every answer to every angle, to every question. And this whole like blanket statement, I know more than you, is just, it takes away like your ability to learn yourself and other people to teach you something. And I just think it's so important to like keep asking each other questions and keep pushing each other's friendships to like be better versions of yourself. Talk about friends with benefits. I mean, that's the point. Is like you have to really, because our friends, I think now have become our family. Everything changed so much. And they maybe have been in the past, but everything we thought was guaranteed isn't. Our job, we lost our jobs, we lost our apartments, we lost, so we lost some friends. So the people you're choosing now are so much, like they're so important and they're so much bigger in your world. And I mean, I even get emotional thinking about it because like this move is like without these friends, like I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able, before I used to be able to like, yeah, exactly. Like I used to be able to do it like, I'll do anything. I got this. I can do it on my own. And now it's like, you just need, you need that tribe, you need your people, and you need to like we all need to push each other to be bigger than ourselves, because otherwise we're just going to get into this like spiral of just pettiness and it's not good.
Oh, Kristen, you have any more questions?
I love you, Renee. You're my favorite.
Can I just say thank you for having me. And also it's just like so inspiring to see anyone I know. I mean, you and I haven't officially met, but I'm sure we will. But like it's so I'm like pointing at you like you can tell who I'm pointing to. Digital. I told you I'm not a Zoom comedian. But I just it's really nice to see everybody like taking on something that's so, just points of view and exciting things, and your friendship is inspiring, and it just excites me to know that like people are there for each other, and that we're all here to laugh a little bit and to drink a little bit and to cheers a little bit and to just have all
and
friends.
find our husbands a little bit.
Oh yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I just love the laughter you brought to this episode, but there were so many like life gems that you use for comedy, but things that you can live by, which, that is the purpose of this show, is just to make everybody's life a little bit happier, a little bit easier. So listen, tell everyone where they can find you, where they can follow you.
Yeah, Instagram is at Rene Lovit. Facebook's all the whatever other technologies. I think that's pretty much it. Wherever people find people now, I'm probably there.
Yeah, and if you have any shows coming up or anything, let us know.
I mean, I'm working on this one woman show, which I'll start to do some posts about. It's basically all of my life stories based around the history of potatoes. So that should be interesting.
Wow.
I love it.
Yeah. It's if I can give you a gem for anything, it's probably with a potato. I can probably tell you how to cure any medical and how to cook a couple of recipes. Yeah.
Nice.
So that'll be coming out. I'll probably start doing some promos for that. And then I'm gonna try and do some outdoor shows out here, like in the parks and whatnot. Somebody tell me where they are.
Oh my gosh, absolutely do that. We'll broadcast live from it, get you some virtual audience. You don't have to deal with that. That would be amazing. But Renee, you were so great. Kristen, thank you so much for introducing us and having her on the show. I hope you guys have enjoyed this gem-filled, funny as hell episode with this incredible woman. Make sure that you follow her everywhere and follow Best Friends with Benefits for more.
Yes.
All right, make sure you follow us on Instagram, BF with Benefits Podcast. We also have a YouTube channel, so if you want to see the visual to this episode, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to get the notification whenever we upload.